Welcome back, everybody. Before we have our Krystal Lynn, our guest, on today, we're just talking about some pet peeves we have dealing with clients and some of the things that they do, trying to share and collaborate. And we're talking about Google Docs versus Word Docs or Word.
So much better.
Yeah, and there's a time and a place for Word. In my opinion, everything Microsoft is just it just feels old. Maybe it's because it's been around for so long. Maybe it's, hey, look, maybe it's great now. I just try not to use it. And we're talking about, this happens a lot in marketing, when a client will work within a Word doc with you. Let's say we're writing the copy for an email or a web page, whatever, and we'll start working within a Word doc, and they'll say, okay, well, send that version to me, instead of collaborating on a live version. And I think Microsoft Word lets you do this now also, but it's not as clear. You see, Google Docs, I can send you a link, and you and I can both be working in there at the same time, or leave comments for each other. Hey, I'm not sure about this up here. What do you think? And that way, it's in 10 minutes, whatever you needed to do is done. There's no whatever. And some of these clients want you to work within a Word doc and then download it and send that to them. And then they'll do something in there. And then they'll send it back and they'll change in the title, version 1, version 1.2, version whatever. And when you have 5 or 6 people on an email thread, which is another thing I'm not a huge fan of, when you have 6 people working together on a project, and when you log into your Gmail and it's this long buried thread of just nonsense. So when you add that on top of, we have to make final edits for approval to the copy for something. Well, who's got the latest version? We are dealing with people in 2025 that are still doing that. They're still like, hey, can you download the Word doc and send it to me? Come on. And those are the type of people that aren't going to be around for much longer. Anyway.
The thing that I like about Google and the Google Docs is, like, as soon as you open it up, it saves into your shared docs. You have all the collection in there. Everything is already posted inside of your shared folder. And then they say, depending who's editing inside the Google Doc, it shows who's in there live. You can literally see people editing in there. And it keeps it more updated, more fresh. So it's a good way to go. But Queen Krystal Lynn Star, how are you?
Hi.
Hello, I'm well. How are you guys?
So you jumped in on us. We were complaining about clients and Google Docs and stuff, boring stuff. So thanks for coming on.
I heard the good stuff. I didn't hear the complaints. So
yeah, that's okay. Part of the show is complaining about clients.
I guess we want to start the show off by just, you introducing yourself as well. I'll do a little bit. So I actually met you at, I believe it was one of our co-working events we had down here in Playa through myself and Matt with the Conscious Co-working. And then you kind of told me about what you do with, your energy healing. And I don't want to butcher exactly what it is that you do, of course. But through that process, we've had, a few meetings back and forth, and we've been connected on WhatsApp and Instagram. And in the very near future, we're going to be building out a community with you and some websites and some courses. And I know currently right now you're in the process of working with, I believe it's a lady, doing your branding and getting your messaging and your colors and everything all down. And once we have once you have that finalized, we're going to be diving into some really cool stuff with launching your programs and your courses and building out the community of what it is that you do. So we're excited as a team and a company and an agency to be able to bring your vision to life. And I'd like you to kind of explain to our audience and even Lee and myself a bit better what it is that you do exactly.
Okay, sounds good. Hello, everyone. My name is Queen Krystal Lynn Star. My mission is to transform women into queens through recoding their nervous system from survival to thrival and activating their spiritual gifts. So my journey and a little bit about me, I am Egyptian born, but I grew up in the States. About 7 years ago, I quit my fancy corporate job in New York where I was making lots of money and very comfortable because it just didn't feel in alignment anymore. Took off with a backpack, traveled to 42 countries. That's when I had my spiritual awakening. Life started to transform and I started to really come into the truth of who I am and my soul mission and what I am here to deliver. Was not an easy journey, but I would say that it is worth it. I can finally say after 7 years that I have arrived to a very grounded, focused, aligned space of who I am, that I am here to serve women and specifically conscious female entrepreneurs that know they're meant for so much more, that know that they are being called to really share their gifts with the world. They just need a little bit of that support to really put themselves out there, to have the confidence, to have the trust, to really come into, what is their uniqueness? What is their zone of genius? What is their spiritual gifts? And then to expand their nervous system capacity, to feel safe, to feel worthy, to feel focused, to actually take action and then to come up with a plan. What are we birthing? How are we going to birth it? How are we going to structure it? And my work is based on just my journey. And the process, this three-part model that I've built is based on what I have found influenced my life the most and kind of got me here to where I am, just fully in alignment, fully in fulfillment, and living in abundance. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's amazing. Can you? And I don't know how much you want to get into what you did prior to this, but so that's a big
All of
deal,
it.
though. That's a huge deal, though. I have to give you a lot of credit because it's not easy
Thank
for
you.
somebody to leave. Well, and we've all kind of done it to an extent, but it sounds like you really did it. You were living comfortably. You were in a, New York's a great place for the most part, and until it's not. No, it's super congested.
Yes.
I know, but that's remarkable, though. So you were there. You were in the corporate world. You were living comfortably. And how long was that transition before you kind of knew something was you were not in the right place for you? It wasn't the right thing for you. For me, it was a slow burn. I've worked in corporate jobs for 10 years and I finally had enough. Was it quick for you, or were the whole time you were just, I know I need to get out of here, but I'm just not really sure what I'm supposed to do yet?
Yeah, it was about a year and a half process, I would say, if I were to reflect back on it, where I started to just feel like I'm not happy here. Something isn't feeling right. What is it? And I couldn't put my finger on it. Back then, I hadn't done any self-work. I wasn't spiritual at all. None of that. But I feel like it was the seeds were awakening from within me. And at first, I thought, oh, I just needed to switch positions in my job. Right. So I did that. And then I was like, no, that's not it. And then I was like, you know what? They're not paying me enough. I need to make more money. Right. So I went through the fight with HR, got the money, made the 100+ K or whatever it was I was making at the time. And then it was like, no, the money doesn't even feel good. It's like, okay, I have the money, but what am I going to do with the money? Right. I don't have the time. It's like every time I go on vacation, I have to come back. And I realized that I just wanted to go on vacation and never come back. That was the driving force. And then I thought it was the company. So I switched companies and I kept kind of started to come closer and closer to this realization that I'm just not meant for this world, but I was just really afraid to fully pull off the Band-Aid. So I was trying all these things. And after spending about maybe 7 or 8 months in the new company, it just started to become clear that no, it's just this entire life. It's just not meant for me. And at the time I had started as my side gig to escape my corporate life, a food blog in New York. And I started to travel and I made it a food and travel blog. And I'm like, I don't really know what I want to do and I don't know where this could lead, but this is the only thing that I would want to do with my time right now. So that was kind of my backup plan, is like, I'm going to quit my corporate job and I'm going to become a full-time famous blogger. And that didn't happen, but at least I had something to kind of latch onto. And what was beautiful is that the week I was going to finally go in and put my 2-week notice, I think I planned to do it on a Thursday. I walked into the office on a Monday and they said, you're being laid off.
Okay.
So
Well, yeah.
it was just like the universe, and that was my biggest sign, and everything from there just like boom, boom, boom aligned. I was able to leave my apartment quickly. Someone adopted my cat. Someone bought my furniture. Within 2 weeks, I was out of New York and I was on the road. So it just, there's something really powerful about us putting an intention out there into the universe and being, yes, I don't know the how, I'm terrified, but I'm going to do this. And once I decided, everything just went into motion.
I like what you did there. And I know this is probably a longer process for you, but what I like about how you handled it, because some people are irresponsible when they jump off to do new things. Also, some people leave jobs, they don't put any thought into it. They're just, oh, I don't want to work here anymore. Then they're trying to go do something completely different. And they end up just coming right back. But I like what you did where you're like, well, maybe it's the money. Maybe it's this particular company. And plus you have peace of mind now that you did those things. So, well, it wasn't the money and it wasn't that company.
Right.
Because have you just left the company you were at, you would have been like, oh, maybe I should have tried for a different promotion or something. But it sounds like you did all that and you still wanted to get out. So that's a pretty strong sign right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, once I left, it was just very clear. It was just like, there's nothing more left for me here at all. I've tried everything. And that was the thing, is that I don't know what I'm stepping into. And yes, the unknown is scary, but all I know is that I cannot be where I am anymore. It just wasn't an option. I can't be here. So whatever is out there, there's gotta be something that is a better fit, even though I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's a big key point takeaway there is a lot of people, I think, have that intuition, they have the inner feeling of like, something needs to change. But I think what's happening nowadays, especially maybe just across the world, but especially in Western society, is we're lacking the confidence and the courage to take a step and take faith. We're almost like taught and programmed, not always, we are taught and programmed that you need the security of the job and you can't leave. And so you're kind of like manipulated and brainwashed into that. And you lose your courage. And I think one of the things personally from my experience, what really got me out of Canada is I knew for years, I probably had, in a span of 4 years, I probably had 9 different jobs just because I'd try different industries. And I'd do firefighting and the oil rigs and I'd back to the railroad and just all these things. Maybe it's the province I'm in. Maybe it's the job title I have. Like I did the same sort of steps trying to change, but I just knew that there was something else out there. And it was having that initial courage to finally break free and try something new out of the norm where it's like, all right, I'm working for myself now. This is all on me, right? It takes a lot of bravery to do that. So when you said when you left New York and then you started traveling, and this, I guess that was the first, you getting laid off on a Monday and you're supposed to quit on a Thursday, and then you're someone adopted your cats and you got rid of your apartment and sold your couches. That was the first sign of the universe coming in.
Yeah.
When along the journey of the 42 countries did you start really being able to harness in on, I have a gift and I have powers and I need to share that with other women? What was that? Was it in Tibet? Was it in Bangladesh? Like where did this come?
Well, what happened? I left the US, I went to Cuba, and then from Cuba I went to Mexico. And in Cuba I met this girl that said, hey, I'm also going to Mexico and I'm attending a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And as soon as she said that, something within my soul said, yes, go. I've never meditated a minute in my life at that point, right? And I signed up to sit 10 days meditating in silence. And that retreat truly shifted my entire perspective, like totally reprogrammed my mind, just expanded me, like expanded my consciousness, opening to a new way of life, a new way of being, things that are possible, this idea of having freedom, having liberation, living outside of a schedule, living outside of a structure. Was really big. The idea of the being versus the doing, right? I was so in the doing. I was so in the control. I still, even though I left my corporate job, I wanted to find a plan. I needed to know what's next. And I left there being, I don't need to know. I don't need to know. I can just, what if I just be? And what if life was about just enjoying? What if I just travel for enjoyment? Right? Not because I'm trying to find my next job, not because I want to bring money in, not even because I wanted to blog. I actually quit my blog after that point because I realized I did it as an escape from my job, but it still wasn't my truth. It still wasn't my true passion. And for the first time, I had liberation because up until that point, I've been working every day of my life since I was 14 years old. And what my soul really needed was to do nothing. But it's like you said, Sean, it's that courage to allow ourselves, to give ourselves permission to enjoy life without the guilt, right? And then many meditation retreats later, YouTube videos, books, all the things. It was really just a progression, but a big part of what opened up my purpose was actually going back to where I was from, going back to Egypt. I went on this really spiritual journey with an incredible woman where we visited the temples and we worked with the energy of the temples, and literally every temple I stepped into, a superpower activated. All of a sudden I was moving energy. All of a sudden I was opening a portal. All of a sudden I was activating sound. All of a sudden all the temple walls were shaking. And I'm like, how is this happening? And it was all coming through me. And that's when I realized, wait, I have gifts. I have superpowers. And then from there, my gifts just naturally started to open. The right mentors came along. The right books came along. And I realized that my biggest gift is that I'm a channel. I have a direct channel to original source consciousness, and I can tune in. I receive a lot of information for myself, for my clients, for the planets. I see past lives. I see future lives. I download literally incredible business plans for my clients. I can read someone's original soul blueprint. I can see what they were designed to be here doing. and I can bring them back into that alignment. They're incredible gifts, but when they come in, they are a bit overwhelming and you do need to learn how to use them. But that was really the turning point for me, was really going back to, one, because it's where I'm from, Egypt, and I believe that holds a massive amount of significance. But two, Egypt energetically just such a powerhouse, and on a soul level for all of us, it holds a lot of our gifts and a lot of our path to awakening, which is why I take people now there on, I call them soul awakening journeys, where I take them into the temples, into these really powerful sites, and we really help initiate and activate that part of themselves.
So much information I want to touch on here, but I'm going to take it back to the silent retreat. I just did a 10-day silent retreat last summer here in the US.
Okay.
And I didn't realize to just, even on its basic level, what you're saying about trying to figure out just being okay, just sitting with yourself and letting the thoughts come. I tell a story, and I've told Sean this a million times. I was on the retreat and it was about day 5. And of course, you know, if yours was the same as mine, they take your phone. You can't do anything when you're in there. You can't even write anything down. They wouldn't even let us journal or anything. No exercise, no journaling. And I say this because I want people to know that even if you're not into meditation or Buddhism or whatever it happens to be, because it's not really a religious thing, even if you're not into anything like that, just getting away from all the distractions, from your work, from whatever you have going on in your daily life, not touching this thing for, a couple of weeks. It still took me 5 days. And on the 5th day, I started having all these new ideas. And I was, oh my, this is what's wrong with the planet right now, is nobody's just sitting with themselves anymore. All the revelations you had, just imagine what would happen to the rest of the population if we forced everybody, if we made everybody once a year go do something like that. So anyway, I'm glad you brought that up, because those are very powerful. And look, I'm not a big meditator. I mean, I kind of am now, but I wasn't before that. It was painful sitting on that little pillow for 12 hours a day. But it made me feel kind of sad. I was happy about what I got out of it, but it made me feel kind of sad for the rest of society that's just stuck and distracted. Every 8 seconds we have something going on. So that was a huge deal. But anyway, I forgot where I was going to go after that. So
100%. I can build on that a little bit, because I really feel like it's super important and it's key, because so many people feel maybe a bit lost, maybe a little bit confused, maybe not connected to their creativity. And it's like, why? And then they're trying to do more to unlock it, but that's not the key. It's about doing less to unlock it, right? Because why are we not connected? Why are we not in our creative energy and our flow and our feminine? Because our energy is so much, it's directed outward, right? So much. We're constantly being with people, trying to create and meeting and social things and this and this and that. And it's all about coming inward and listening and tuning in, right? So even if you're not able to do a 10-day silent meditation retreat like you and I always recommend to my clients, and I'm like, 1 day a week, 1 day a month on a Sunday, just sit in your home, do nothing, turn your phone off, and just stare at the ceiling. If you have a rooftop or a garden, stare at the plants. Just do nothing and see what happens. Literally magic unlocks just by, and I call it an energy detox, right? Because then you're releasing everyone else's energy from your field and you're coming into your own. And when you just establish that connection, so much unlocks. Because people ask me, how are you so psychic? How can you channel? How can you read? How can you do all of this? And truly, when I reflected on my journey, I didn't really have too many teachers and mentors or took classes on how to do this. I sat in silence. I've probably sat 10 to 17 day silent meditation retreats over the last 7 years. And in between those retreats, I would just sit in silence by myself from my apartment, because you realize how good the silence feels. It actually feels really, really good once you immerse yourself in it. So yeah, I really feel like that's key to acceleration, right? To really move forward, to get the momentum that you want, the ideas, the creativity, your zone of genius. It's not about doing more. It's about doing less.
Yeah, and I found that's very helpful too, because I remember when I first moved to Mexico, basically I was starting over again, had zero really money, no income coming in, and I was caught in this concept of I just need to keep doing. The more I work, the more I sit at my computer, the more I message, the more I do. There is a time and place for getting work done. I agree. You can't say there's no time. I'm just going to let everything come to me. You have to put effort into the world, right? You can't just be like, I'm manifesting everything. No, you got to put effort. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. But I realized that, it was when I took those days off, I just sat in my bed or I went to the beach and relaxed. All of a sudden a client would message, or all of a sudden I get a new contract.
Yeah.
It's allowing this. And there was a quote I just heard. I mean, I have it up on my wall here. It's infinite patience brings instantaneous results. So the more patient you are, the more you let go of things, the more you release control, the more you just kind of like let the universe provide while still putting in some effort in the areas that are mine. But if you're not attached to the outcomes anymore, the more the instantaneous those results start coming in. It's more and more true. And like from a logical, the masculine logic side, it's like that doesn't make any sense. Like, what do you mean? I just stop trying and it comes. But the energetic, the feminine side's like more into the spirituality of it. And I want to touch on when you said about, the sitting in silence. And there was actually a really cool thing that I did yesterday morning. And I mean, you guys practice it as well too. I went to a guided heartbeat meditation event. So my buddy, Matt, he studied this in Cambodia and in Bali India and Cambodia, where he learned this. And basically he creates his own stethoscopes and he decorates them and has mirrors on them and everything. And you just put in your ears and you listen to your heartbeat for 10 minutes. So you hear nothing else besides yourself. And you just, it's the first time. And the comforting part of it is probably the first time I've heard my heartbeat in like 30 years. Because as a kid, you're at the doctors, obviously you might hear it, but as a son and you as a daughter, it's the oldest memory you have of your mother. Because when you're in her womb, you heard the heartbeat. When she's feeding, when she's taking care of you, your head's on top of her heartbeat. So it was this like connection that re-arose to my mother who passed away a few years ago. So it was like very like maybe a little sad a little bit, but it was like kind of started remembering, but like the importance of just like listening to yourself and being in silence is such a key part. Yeah, it really, really hit home. And on a funnier note, my girlfriend brought it to my attention. She's like, you know what, Sean, I think our relationship would benefit so much more if you just had those moments where you talked less. I was trying to think about it. I'm like, what do you mean? And then I got it. I'm like, oh, because I'm always mansplaining and over-explaining things. And I'm just, I like to hear my voice. So it's like, actually just sit with it. I'm like, so it wasn't an insult. It wasn't trying to be mean or nothing like that. But at first, the ego's like, what do you mean? Well, you don't like my, right? But yeah, it's true. The more you're with yourself, the better.
Well, you are the loudest person in the room all the time too. Not because you're trying to be, but when I was in Mexico, I could go into a restaurant or cafe, not knowing he was there, and he's just somewhere else, and his voice just cuts through, it just echoes through, which is awesome to have like a nice, cool, deep voice. But I'm like, oh, Sean's here. I can hear him somewhere. You know?
Just talk less.
I love that, and I love that you brought like the masculine, feminine energetics into it, because that's exactly what it is, right? Like the masculine is the giving polarity, and then the feminine is the receptive polarity, right? And just from this is how I explain to my clients, a very basic level of understanding is, if you are constantly doing, how are you supposed to receive, right? If you're going to receive something, it's like you got to pause and kind of put your hands out for you to actually receive it, right? So that's just the basic thing. So logically, when you think about it, you're like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. And I see people do so much and they're like, I'm not receiving enough. And I'm like, stop doing, stop overgiving, stop people pleasing, right? Stop being in your masculine, essentially. So that's why, like, I take myself to the spa once a week, and exactly like you said, Sean, it's the more I do that and just take care of myself, that's when like the results come in. The client out of nowhere, or I'll meet someone at the spa, or this or that. Why? Because I'm just in the energy of receptivity. And that's what meditation or leaning back is, right? It just puts you in the receptive energy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's key. Like you said, yeah, if you're constantly doing, how are you going to receive? It's the same thing for the listeners out there who have the physical labor jobs like I do. I'll dumb it down for you guys. But like, if you're constantly working, how are you going to have time to drink water and eat? You have to take breaks. You have to take breaks from your work and be able to receive the nutrients to be able to continue the working you do. So it's a very key point. Well, the question that kind of just came up for me as well with all of this, we've talked about, working in New York, trying the different jobs that you had at different positions, quitting, going traveling, 40 countries. How long have you been in this spiritual realm that you've been utilizing and realizing you had the gifts? And how long has it been since you've, did that travel, went to Egypt, saw the walls of the temple shake and felt the energies? Like how long has this been?
Yeah, That was about maybe 3.5 years ago now, that realization of, okay, this is who I really am. These are my superpowers. This is what I'm meant to do. And at the time I had started other businesses. I had invested in Airbnb. I became a vegan chef somewhere along the way, and I was working as a private chef in the US for a while, and slowly then transitioned into hosting women's circles, doing energy healing, hosting a couple of women's retreats. And it really wasn't until last year that I decided that it was just time to fully step into my calling. I sold the Airbnb. I shut my vegan business down. And again, it was one of those where the cycles were coming to an end. It all just really collapsed in a way. And it felt, okay, it was time to take all my money, all my energy, and just really invested in me and in this mission and in what matters, which was, again, another big, bold move, because it's a whole new industry, the coaching industry, the spirituality part of it. But it's been really rewarding. I would say I'm still building and I'm still learning, but it's probably been the most fulfilling and the most aligned thing that I've done. And I feel the most motivated because it's really coming from a place of truth and feeling that there's something bigger that is operating from within me and through me to birth what I am here to birth, to really be of service. This is not about making money or chasing a hobby, right? This is truly about a calling.
Plus the transition from corporate life to kind of figuring yourself out. And then once you've got you're rooted in that, now you're able to actually help other people. You probably wouldn't have been able to go from corporate life and like, oh, I'm just going to coach people. You had to sit with it for yourself for a while and really, really figure it out and take it all in and think about all the aspects of it. What do I want to do and how can I help? Because that's important too. There are a lot of people that will go learn a particular thing, and this applies to all areas of life, and then they all of a sudden think that they're ready to teach or help other people through it. It's just not the case. They need to do it for themselves for a while and actually really, really explore it. What I keep coming back to, I'm fascinated by this whole prior life thing, or like incarnation, or whatever. I know every religion has its own little thing behind it. And the thing is, I was never very spiritual up until a couple of years ago, and even now, I'm healthily, is that a word? I'm skeptical to an extent, but I'm into everything. I'll try anything. I love it. I want all, like our unified consciousness. I love it all. It all makes sense. All the new studies that they're doing, even on the scientific side, are all pointing to there's being some type of higher connectivity. And then of course there's all the psychedelics and everything that kind of push that along. But I was reading some books by some clinical hypnotherapists, and they would take people back through their previous lives and they would hypnotize them, and all of a sudden they're speaking Chinese or something. And it's been studied, and those stories have been collated, and it's just been very, very remarkable. So I don't know if you have anything in that area that you can share, or what your experience has been looking into it, either for yourself or for others. But I'm just fascinated by that whole thing.
Yes, this could be a whole episode on its own. Literally, that's a whole other thing.
I figured. Yeah.
I will tell you this. I'm very well grounded in a lot of different facets of spirituality. All the countries I went to, the spiritual teachers that I've studied with, the things I've channeled, the books that I have read. But my thing is embodiment and the experiential aspect of things, right? So I don't teach you something when you come, or I don't coach you as a client from, this is what I learned in a book, or this is what someone certified me to do. This is based on I have walked the effing walk for 7 years. It has been a journey of transformation, right? And I've become the embodiment of it. And I will never teach you anything that I have not had a direct experience of. Right? If I had not had direct experiences of past lives and went back to so many of mine on my own and done the work there and healed them and cleared them and retrieved gifts and even tapped into my future lives and all of that, I would not be here having this conversation with you about it. And I feel like that's so important, is that it just brings such an authenticity factor to any mentor or coach that we work with, is find someone that has walked the walk, that has really embodied this work. And that's my thing with my clients, is that I don't want it to take you 7 years to awaken and find your purpose and come into alignment. Let's do it in 7 months, because I've walked it, right? I know the roadmap. Plus I can read your soul, and I know exactly where the blocks are and, where we need to go. Past lives, yeah, it's a very, very real thing. We have all had past lives before. This is not our first time on this planet. This is not our first time being incarnated. I can tap into my past lives very easily. I can take my clients there very easily, and it's all to simply describe it, it's all these karmic patterns that continue to play out. So you live these past lives and you have these lessons you're meant to learn. You don't learn the lesson there, great, you're going to come back and you're going to be here to learn it, or, purify it or recode it, depending on the word that you want to use. So typically when a client comes to me with anything that's happening in their lives, hey, I have relationship issues. Hey, the money's not coming in. Hey, this, hey, that, beautiful. It has nothing to do with the situation that is happening right now, right? What is the emotion behind it? What is the thought behind it? What is the energy behind it? And how far back can I trace it, right? Is it trauma from your childhood? Is it ancestral and generational, right? Or is this a past life that's playing out, right? Because I can sit here and counsel you and we can talk about, the anxiety or the scarcity or whatever it is, but all of that is surface level. It's going to come back in a couple of weeks. And that's why I do the work on a deep level. We go through the nervous system. We go through your past lives. We go to the core. When did this start? Whether it's in this lifetime or other lifetimes. And once you do that clearing there, then it's done. You don't have to worry about it coming back. It has no reason to show up in your life again. Right? So that's the power of doing this work. And I can almost connect anything, whether it's in my life or in a client, to these events. It's always past life, childhood trauma, ancestral trauma, but likely the ancestral and the childhood is playing out in this lifetime because it's something that you're carrying over from a past life. So yeah, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like what you really touched on there is because there's so many different, coaches and therapists and healers and stuff out there. It's, there's no criteria of what makes someone a coach or what makes someone a healer. They can just basically I want to be a coach today. And there's no, to be a doctor, you have to have your medical degree. You have to go to school. There's a diploma you hang on your wall. But for this field, and I think that's why a lot of people have such skepticism when it comes to it, because there's no criteria needed. So one of the best quotes that I heard was, as a coach specifically, this is for coach, you can only take your clients as far as you've taken yourself. Right. So because you put in the work, you put in the years of studying, you've gone through the journeys, you've been through the retreats and the temples and all the things you've done, you've gone so deep into yourself, you can take your clients that way. And that's really what differentiates, someone who's good at what they do and someone that's bad. Because I've had a coach before, and you can tell that they just were, I'm a coach, right? Because they're trying to ask me surface level questions. I'm like, well, take me deeper, and it's because they haven't taken themselves deeper yet. I'm asking, can we talk about my mother, something? They bring something up here, and there's just nothing getting deep. So the fact that because you've taken yourself so far, you can take other people as far as well. In the spirit of time for the episode as well, I want to start coming to the close of it here in the next little bit. But I would like to, if you could give some sort of advice or encouragement to women out there that have that feeling that there's something more within them, but they're maybe too afraid to reach out. They're too afraid to embrace it. They're afraid of their power. What would be a word of advice for women that have that, they're lacking that little bit of courage and then taking that first step? What would be, maybe not to reach out directly to someone, but to just try something?
Yes. Two things. The first thing I'll say is this: if you don't try, you'll never know. If you don't try, you'll never know, right? Like the COI, cost of inaction, right? What is your cost of inaction? You are going to stay exactly right where you are. And how is that treating you? How is that working out for you, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing, we didn't get to touch on this. This might be another episode. Put me down for 2 more episodes, guys.
2 more.
Is nervous system regulation. Because honestly, of all the things that we've talked about in my journey, that was the glue. That was the magic sauce for me that brought it all together. Because even though I stepped into my gifts and I had the courage to leave the job and I knew I was powerful, I was holding on to so much trauma in my system, so much of living in survival, so much fear, right? That every time I try to step out there into the world, really share my gifts, do the Instagram live, build the business, create the offer, I shrunk and I went back in and I would go into hiding. And what really catapulted me into full on stepping into this work last year was I found a nervous system recoding modality. It's the best on the planet, literally. And that shifted my entire life because it went into my nervous system and healed my trauma from the root cause, right? Because why do we often know that we really want to do the thing? You have the desire, but it's not happening, or you're not manifesting it, or you're not attracting it because there's something in your system that says that thing is unsafe. Right? If you do this, you will die. That's that fight or flight response that comes up, that overwhelm, that feeling of stuckness. Had I had a regulated system when I was trying to leave my corporate job, it would not have taken me a year and a half, right? Because now I make decisions like this. I move quickly, right? And money loves speed, right? You want to advance, you want to grow, you want to accelerate. You just have to move quickly. So I would say, take care of your nervous system because that's your foundation. That's your core. You get that aligned, you get that recoded from survival to thrival, you can do anything that you desire. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's powerful. Realigning your nervous system, like, if you don't try, you'll never know. It's a big thing, right? Like, I mean, a lot of people, they have that fear, but I would rather live a life of trying and failing than not trying and wondering what if. And I think it just comes down to if you have that feeling of what if, right? Yeah, I really appreciate you being on the show. I know Lee's probably got a couple of questions to wrap it up. One of the ones we always ask, if women primarily want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you? We will add in your handles and whatever you provide for us inside the description of this podcast, but what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Krystal Lynn Star on Instagram, Krystal with a K, Lynn, and then also Krystal Lynn Star at Gmail. I have a lot of incredible free content on Instagram, and I would love to connect with anyone that's listening. If you just have any questions, if you're curious, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to just have a chat with you.
I appreciate you coming on again. And like you mentioned, I can see this turning into a series. I'd like to, when I'm done editing this one, I'll pull out some of the takeaways from it, and then we'll hit you up because it'd be great to expand on some of the points that we didn't have time to today. So it was very, very nice meeting you. Can't wait to talk to you again.
Same here.
Where are you, by the way? Are you down in Mexico as well?
I'm in Playa. I'm Team Playa. Let's go. Let's do something in person.
I know. I was down there. I was down there last winter, and I should have come back. I'm in Texas. It's cold here. I thought it was going to be warm, but it's not. And I do miss it. And of course, Sean's down there. All my other friends are down there as well. So anyway, that's a story for another day. But yeah, absolutely. I'll come down and we'll have some fun. But again, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. And
thanks, Lee. So nice to meet you. Yes, 100%. Thank you, guys.